We tend to think of spiritual enlightenment as a state that requires absolute physical isolation. The common myth suggests that to find truth, you have to leave your home, find a mountain cave, and hide from the modern world. But the life of a woman named Kalmudi, who would eventually be known as Yogeshwari, disrupts that entire narrative. She reached the peak of spiritual mastery while navigating an arranged marriage, raising children, and working a daily job as a teacher. Her journey suggests that the highest states of awareness don't happen by removing yourself from the chaos. They happen when you step directly into it and bring the internal noise to a dead stop. For Yogeshwari, spirituality was never about escaping the responsibilities of life. She treated those brutal, mundane daily duties as the primary battlefield for the soul. Even as a child, Kalmudi possessed an unusual inner vision. During local festivals, she claimed to see a divine essence radiating from the actors on stage, perceiving a light that others missed. But this sensitivity provided no protection from the world's harshness. Following a traditional arranged marriage, she found herself in a household that viewed her only as a source of domestic labor. Her spiritual interests were ignored, and her days were consumed by relentless chores. This physical strain continued even as she reached the final stages of pregnancy. Denied rest and proper nutrition by her in-laws, she gave birth to a son who struggled to breathe. He died 24 hours later, a tragic outcome of her environment's cruelty. In the wake of this loss, her household offered only blame instead of compassion. Isolated in her grief and physically broken, she found that her role in that family had been reduced to a failed expectation. Instead of breaking her, this trauma forced a profound shift. She began to move through her daily work like a machine, performing chores without emotional reaction, while her consciousness withdrew into an internal refuge. This total detachment from external approval transformed her householder life into the exact pressure chamber needed to turn her focus permanently inward. Eventually, Kamudi left that household and moved to the Indo-Nepal border, building a new life as a schoolteacher. She remarried and eventually raised 4 more children, balancing the demands of a growing family with her career. Her path took a definitive turn under the guidance of Dr. Narayan Dutt Srimali. He recognized that her domestic obligations provided the necessary friction for her growth, and he instructed her to stay exactly where she was, within the world. She took on the Ma Bagalamukhi sadhana, a discipline that demands absolute inner stillness to paralyze internal and external opposition. It required her to maintain a focused, meditative state regardless of her surroundings. For 20 continuous years, she maintained this silent inner architecture. Outwardly, she was grading papers, cooking meals, and navigating the threat of regional cross-border violence. Inwardly, her practice never broke. Her life showed that true spiritual practice depends on the capacity to sustain silence while the world demands your full attention. 2 decades later, she encountered the works of Colonel T. Srinivasalu. The recognition was instantaneous. She saw in his teachings the final clarity she had been cultivating in silence for years. She sought his guidance and received Shaktipat, a transmission of awakened energy that serves as a catalyst. It acted on the massive reservoir of potential she had built through 20 years of discipline. The transmission dissolved whatever subtle ego remained. The immense energy she had stored was no longer a personal achievement. It expanded into a force dedicated to removing the ignorance of others. Realization follows a strict law of accumulation. The spark of Shaktipat only creates a transformation when it meets the decades of grueling, lived discipline that preceded it. When Yogeshwari was eventually initiated as a Shaktipat guru herself, her family feared she would finally leave. To them, her spiritual authority meant she would surely abandon her home for a traditional, isolated life. She refused. She told her children that her spiritual devotion was inseparable from her responsibility to them. She made it clear that her realization only deepened her commitment to her family. She lived like a lotus leaf, which rests on the surface of the water but remains dry. She was fully engaged in the world, yet her inner peace was no longer dependent on its circumstances. Her life redefined renunciation as an internal shift in attitude rather than a change in physical location. She demonstrated that the highest form of awakening requires the courage to live completely within the world while remaining inwardly free.